Courtney, what are the steps going forward for the United States to be able to determine how effectively they did indeed obliterate these 3 sites, as the president claims?
Yeah, that was something I was really struck by. The term completely and totally obliterated is how President Trump characterized all 3 of those sites. Now, first off, the U.S. is going to have to wait until daylight in Iran, which is coming up pretty soon, to be able just to see. I'm sure that there will be satellite images. I'm sure that there will be, frankly, social media images that will pop up to show exactly what have happened there. But the reality is the best way for anyone to determine exactly what the real battle damage assessment is to have people on the ground. Jose, I cannot envision any scenario in which that involve U.S. military or U.S. personnel in any real way, but I suspect that's what they would really need to have a real, complete, confident assessment that, in fact, the facilities have all been completely and totally obliterated.
The United States of America is now technically at war, confirmed by a Twitter post from President Donald J. Trump confirming we have bombed Iranian nuclear sites. And yet in this breaking story, what you're going to maybe want to hear is how Iran has responded to it. Because Republican Representative Thomas Massie had this response to Donald J. Trump's post-breaking news in a post from Donald J. Trump, President of the United States, just shortly ago. We have completed our very successful attack on 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan. All planes are now outside of Iran. Airspace, a full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Fordo. All planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this now. Now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And please note that Republican Representative Thomas Massie posted in response to that post from Donald J. Trump, "This is not constitutional." And Bernie Sanders said this.
This is a statement from Donald Trump, quote, "We have completed our very successful attack on the 3 nuclear sites in Iran," etc. I agree. And I want to tell you something. Not only is this news that I've just heard, the second alarming that all of you have just heard, but it is so grossly unconstitutional. All of you know that the only entity that can take this country to war is the U.S. Congress. The president does not have the right.
And NBC News is telling us this.
And the Pentagon has been for some time now sending many resources, both the ones that we can see and the ones that we probably can't, to the region. What are some of those sources and resources going to play a part of in protecting U.S. assets and interests in the region?
Yeah, so we've already seen some of them play out, and I suspect that they are only on an even higher heightened state of alert. I don't know how they can go any higher than they have been, frankly. But the U.S. has moved in ground-based interceptors in recent months. That's THAAD and Patriots that have been used, frankly, to help Israel defend itself against some of these Iranian attacks over the last recent days. But the U.S. has also moved in additional ships. Some of those have ballistic missile defenses. They have the ability to shoot down an incoming ballistic missile or other projectiles that are coming at, whether it's U.S. installations, at the ships themselves, or even at land, something like if in fact Iran is trying to target Israel here. But the U.S. also has brought in additional air assets, so jets. They can put those up, they can shoot down drones, missiles, whatever it is that's coming at them. Jose, the big question is, any concern about attacks from some of these smaller groups. So we're not talking about necessarily just ballistic missiles flying from Iran. A lot of that capability has actually been taken out in recent days. The bigger concern right now is these proxy networks that are there in the region. They aren't always firing off large-scale missiles and things. They attack bases with rockets, with mortars, but they can be very deadly in their efforts. And if they try to overwhelm some of these bases and these base defenses, that could pose a real problem for U.S. personnel in the region. That is something that we need to be watching. I would really be fixed on the bases in Iraq and Syria, because there are a number of these proxy networks there. They've been essentially lying kind of dormant in recent months, but they have shown in recent years the ability to really threaten U.S. bases and even cause injury and death to U.S. personnel and service members in the region, Jose.
And yet, with Americans in Iran and all of the Iranians that exist inside the U.S. borders, we might want to care about the actual response Iran has to this. Here is the breaking story now.
من هدف مشروع ایران هستند. آمریکا با این اقدامی که انجام داد علیه ایران و حریم هوایی ایران را شکست و جنایت علیه ایران انجام داد، دیگه جایی در منطقه غرب آسیا نداره. آقای رئیس جمهور آمریکا، شما شروع کردید و ما تمومش خواهیم کرد.
I am well aware that this action by us will be deemed in many circles as necessary. It'll be deemed as glorious, victorious, and it will also be deemed as the only action we could take because of the equipment and the technology that we have the ability to do this based on the bombers and also the particular bombs required to break up something like this concrete site of Iran's. And yet, let us bear in mind that Donald J. Trump has been told that Iran did not have nuclear capabilities nor were close to them. And he literally has denied his own director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard's report, much like he denied the IC's intel way back when he agreed with Putin back in his first term regarding the Russian involvement in the election. We don't know the full truth yet. But what we do know is technically we just bombed Iran, and Iran is going to likely respond. Here's a little bit more of the NBC report, just so you have further context.
Pentagon correspondent Courtney Cubie. Courtney, this is a very clear statement by the president that he expects no retaliation against the United States by the Iranian regime.
Yeah, candidly, Jose, I thought that would be a message that the president would have really hammered home in his statement less than an hour ago now. So it's interesting that only moments after he finished speaking from the White House, he put out a statement saying this. This is clearly an indication that there is this ongoing concern that Iran or Iranian proxy groups or networks are going to retaliate against the United States. And there are so many assets that are already there forward in the region. There's U.S. military, there's also diplomatic assets. But the U.S. military and the defense officials who I'm speaking with are particularly concerned about those bases there. The U.S. has moved additional personnel into the region in recent months. Now, a lot of that is defensive in nature, right? They've put additional ground-based interceptors in. There's more ships in the area. There's now 2 carrier strike groups in the CENTCOM area. Destroyers have moved in closer to Israel in recent days. That is for the defense of Israel. But they can also serve to defend Americans and American assets in the region. In addition to that, the U.S. has brought in additional aircraft and fighter jets in recent days and weeks, and that is also so that they can shoot down incoming projectiles. Remember, the U.S. Air Force was pivotal when in one of these now numerous back and forth between Iran and Israel since October 7th, when the U.S. Air Force was up in the air shooting down multiple projectiles, a lot of drones that were coming from Iran launched towards Israel. Now, I suspect that message from President Trump is as much aimed at big Iran as it is at these proxy groups. There's a lot of concern about some of the smaller bases and where the U.S. has, a small number of troops in in Iraq and in Syria. They aren't as heavily fortified, and with so many of those proxy networks that really have freedom of movement and maneuver space around them, that is one of the big concerns. Now, Jose, I can also also tell you we're learning a little bit more detail about what the U.S. did in Iran tonight. We know that those three strikes were, those three sites were targeted, but we now know that a big part of that targeting effort was actually conducted by the United States Navy. U.S. submarines launched off about 30 Tomahawk missiles known as TLAMs. Those are launched from the submarines. They impacted at least 2 of those sites at Isfahan and at Natanz Jose. Again, the president saying that these strikes completely and totally obliterated the sites, but we'll have to wait and see when daylight hits exactly how much damage was done there.
Courtney Kube, thank you so very much. I want to go back to our chief White House correspondent, Peter Alexander. The president, Peter, said that some of his representatives were going to be speaking to the press as early as tomorrow.
That's right, Jose. We're told that we're going to hear from the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, as well as the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Dan Kane will be speaking as well at about 8 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow morning, where we might get a bit more specifics about what took place. But I think what's important to note is what Courtney just reported there here on NBC, that the U.S., beyond those B-2 stealth bombers dropping those 30,000-pound bombs, a specific number that we still have not been able to identify. We know it was multiple bombs that were dropped. We now know that there were at least 30 Tomahawk missiles that were also fired from U.S. Navy vessels, apparently by submarines there. So to the point that we've been having throughout the course of this hour since the president spoke, when given a wide range of options, and it was communicated to me and to our colleagues over the course of the last several days that all options remained on the table. Clearly, among the options, one would have been.
And if you want to help boost this video and you enjoy, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you're stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments or just say, hi, thank you for your support. And until next time, I'll see you soon.